So, should we actually talk about what came out of the Superman panel?
Yeah, sure.
All right, so, whoops. All right, so this comes to us via the Hollywood Reporter.
Okay.
So James Gunn said that he was offered Superman 2018, but chose to do the Suicide Squad instead because he was unsure of how to bring the character to the screen. And Gunn also talked about how Superman is perceived by many as old-fashioned. And what led to Gunn deciding to make Superman was that he was invigorated by the character relationships as well as other elements in Superman, the Superman mythos, like pocket universes and crypto. And here's what James Gunn said via Variety. He said that he came up with a story that is both utterly human and utterly fantastic at the same time. He also said that the movie celebrates kindness and human love. Now, Peter Safran, who is the co-CEO of DC Studios with James Gunn, he said that Crypto was inspired by Gunn's actual dog, who's named Uza. I think that's it. Gunn talked about how taking Uza home after rescuing him from a shelter. He said that the dog would chew up his laptop and shoes, and how Uzu would leap around his house and knock over food. Gunn said, I thought, oh my god, what if this dog had superpowers? I'd be, and we'll censor it so we still have that clean rating on iTunes. And then Gunn said, now I know what I'm going to do with Superman. So that's what James Gunn had to say about what led to him writing and directing Superman. And David Cornsweet, who is our new Man of Steel, talked about playing the character. He said, it's a great honor to play a role that exists so clearly in the public consciousness. Now, Rachel, do you know her? Is it Brosnahan? Have you ever heard of her before? Brosnahan? I think that's her name. Rachel Brosnahan?
This is that who's playing
Lois Lane?
Lois Lane. I remember us talking about this in the last episode and seeing that I recognized stuff that they
I mean, do you know how to
were
pronounce her
in.
name or no?
I
think it's Brosnahan. I think that's what it is.
Looks
So
like Brosnahan.
she said she talked to real journalists to research the role. And Brosnan had said about the film, I feel like these stories endure because there's something in it for everyone. And when talking about playing characters who have been brought to the screen multiple times before, like in the movies we had Margot Kidder, on TV we had Erica Durance, Elizabeth Tulloch, and Superman Lois, she said, we get to stand on the shoulder of giants and then find our ways into their heads. Now we'll talk about the behind-the-scenes reel and footage the footage they showed in a second. But, so it sounds like Crypto is what made Gunn want to direct Superman. My big takeaway from this is no matter how this movie turns out, I have faith in Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane. Like, she talked to journalists to research the role. Now look, I've never seen her in anything. She clearly looks like a Lois Lane. But I just got this feeling like,
yeah,
I think of anything I'll take away from that movie positively, I have faith in Rachel. I believe in Rachel. So, what are your thoughts about Gunn's comments, Safran's, basically from the panel? What stands out to you about this new Superman? We will save the reel and the footage for a second.
Yeah. So yeah, I think you're absolutely. I think no matter how we feel about any particular movie, I think looking at like the care and research that like a performer did in particular is something to appreciate. Always maybe goes underappreciated a lot of times because there's so many factors, and that like one person caring a lot can't necessarily save a movie, but you can kind of look and appreciate that that person was well researched and cared a lot about the role. Which, yeah, I get the same feeling too. There are a lot of casting decisions that I think there are a lot of general decisions about this movie that looking at them on their own are pretty interesting and exciting, and I approve of that decision. And her casting as Lois Lane is one of those. I think that sounds like it's going to be terrific.
Oh, yes. So now they did play two things at CinemaCon, and luckily Warner Brothers released them so we can talk about them.
Yes.
So one of the things they did was a behind-the-scenes reel. I don't know if you saw that or not.
Yeah, I saw both of these things.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So the reel very heavily focused on Superman representing hope, James Gunn, and the start of a new era for DC. So I think it was really important for them to talk about how this is a new era for DC because Black Adam was like less than 4 years ago. So no, it was 2022, so that's less than 3 years ago.
Yeah, it's pretty recent.
So we just had Henry in a movie, so it's not like there was a big gap of time. So it really is important for people to know, hey, this is a new thing. You don't need to worry about subscribing to Max to catch up on like 10 years of movies to understand what's going on. Yeah. Hopefully. But I think talking about being a new era was really important, and I think they did a good job with that in the reel. Superman representing hope. That is something that is clearly a big hook for the movie, and it's a way to differentiate him from Henry Cavill's Superman, who was not the most optimistic Man of Steel.
Yeah.
So there's that. They talk a lot about James Gunn. Clearly, that's going to be a big draw. I think the last time I saw like a director this heavily focused in marketing, maybe Sam Raimi and Doctor Strange or Christopher Nolan for The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah.
So there's that. I mean, it was, at least for DC, last time we saw them push a director this much was Nolan when they were doing Dark Knight Rises. So there's that. So your thoughts on the reel? Overall, I think they did a good job of explaining how it's a new era and talking about how Superman is supposed to represent hope. Yeah. I think those were important things. I think they did a good job of explaining that in this behind-the-scenes reel.
Yeah, I think one of my takeaways is continuing to be, and we'll get into the... Are you asking specifically about the behind-the-scenes clip?
Yeah, we'll save the footage for later.
One of my takeaways has kind of been, like, I really think that the philosophy going into this movie, like the heart and intention going into this movie, has been fantastic. And I think, like, I love the logic of it. I love the concept. Like, everything going into it before that last point of execution of the idea. That's to be discussed later, like once we've seen it, especially. But it really feels like everything going into it are mostly all just like top level, like in terms of the philosophy and the concept and representing hope. The color kind of being breathed into it metaphorically and literally.
The color does look better than the last Superman franchise.
I think that the art direction of this is pretty fantastic. Like, I think that I missed colorful movies, or at least like just choosing kind of bold colors for something that aren't just kind of dark and gritty. I've never been a fan of that. Like, if you know, this opinion was formed way back when, the Zelda Wind Waker is my favorite game of all time, a very controversial game because it's very colorful and cartoony looking. The follow-up was a direct response where everything was dark, just gray and brown and black. And I have always...
That's gotta be tough for a video game where you need to see where you're going.
I mean, you can see fine. Like, it's mostly just an art direction thing where I'm like... it sometimes feels like the fans are like afraid. Like, you know how kids will be really offended if you call them a baby or young, and they're like, "No, I'm old."
Yes,
that's what it feels like. Twilight Princess is to Zelda fans. Is that they saw Wind Waker and they're like, "I'm not a kid. I'm not a baby. That game looks like it's for babies." Anyway, it's a tangent, but that's what Zack Snyder feels like sometimes to me, where it's just like, this is cool.
Zack Snyder fans.
Zack Snyder, yeah, I meant fans of Zack Snyder's stuff. And I guess what I meant was the style of Zack Snyder's DC movies has created fans that are like, I like this to be dark and cool and sort of overly serious, and like it's a grim, dark version of it, and like that's fine. Multiple versions of something can exist, but it's sort of like you see the color. You see the more cartoony, colorful version, and then you go, "I'm not a baby. I'm old. I'm this many."
I was there when the first book came out in June 1938.
Yeah.
I wish I hadn't sold it for scrap paper in the war. Could have been worth a lot of money now.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm just a fan of bold colors. I like how colorful it is. And yeah, the behind the scenes look was a good look at that. It was a good way to describe the intent going into this.
Yeah. Speaking of the look, I don't know if we've ever talked about, what do you think about the suit? You know, I'll just give my opinion real quick. I mean, two things I don't like. Look, I know it's from a certain beloved comic. I love that comic too. I wish we had more traditional S than the Kingdom Come S.
I was afraid to bring that because that's my only thing. It doesn't look enough like an S to me.
Yeah.
It looks like a line.
Yeah. I mean, it's from Kingdom Come.
Yeah.
I got it right here.
Like, yeah, I get it. I get the reference, but it's not my favorite S.
Yeah, and that wasn't like an era of Superman. That was a 4-issue series.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I don't like the way the belt looks. Like, the belt just looks off to me. It looks...
Yeah, I'd have to...
rubbery or something.
Yeah.
In general, I like the design of the suit. Like, to me, it reminds me a lot of the New 52 Superman costume.
Mm-hmm.
I really like how they brought the emblem back on the cape, the yellow one.
Yeah.
But here's something I will say. I like the design of the suit. Like, when I see drawings of it, I think it looks good. I don't like the material it's made of. I wish that, like, you took that design and maybe used the material of Henry Cavill's suit or the Superman Returns suit. There's just something about the material that I think looks off.
You know, I'm trying to see. I don't know if this is what you mean. It's possible. If this is what you mean, it's possible I have the opposite opinion, but we'll see if this... I find that there, especially in that era of superhero movies, there's a lot of things just look moist. Like, everything's so glistening and shiny, and I'm not as big of a fan of that. I think on the new suit, there's a little bit more of a texture. There's a little bit more of a, like, it looks soft and not as much light reflects off of it, which is what the like, you know, Christopher Reeves, like, that kind of had more of that look. That might not be specifically
it looks a
what
little
you're talking about, though.
Rubbery, maybe? I don't know. You know,
okay.
I don't like the lines they have on it.
Yeah, I can see that part is maybe strange. Yeah, I would say for me, I pretty much mostly like everything about it except for the S. That's really my only pet peeve with it.
Yeah, like, I would say in general, I think it looks... When they do drawings of it, I think it looks better than, you know... I hope maybe they use different material if they continue this. So, should we get on to the actual thing that, like, broke the internet?
Yep.
They showed a 5-minute sizzle reel of Superman at CinemaCon.
Yeah.
You know,
Actually, can I, without getting into it, I want to ask just to make sure. I'm going to ask a question that will confirm this. and you don't. It can just be yes or no, and then you can move on.
Okay.
To make sure I saw the right one, is this the clip with the robots?
Yes.
Okay. I did see it then.
Okay. Voiced by Alan Tudyk.
Yeah.
He's becoming like I won't say the level of Stan Lee in the DC universe, but he's getting there with all his appearances because he's in Creature Commandos.
Yes.
I think he's in another thing, and he's also Joker in Harley Quinn along with Clayface. So
yeah, 5-minute clip.
Yeah. So I will share my thoughts about it, and then we'll comic book analyze it in a second.
Yeah.
After we share our thoughts on it. So the clip. It is everything I feared would happen when they announced James Gunn was taking over DC. This clip is terrible. It's not funny. It's annoying, and it's just dumb. Like, you know what I feel? I feel like James Gunn is trying to be like Deadpool, but like it just isn't funny. Like, in the trailer we see Krypto drag Superman. It's kind of corny there, but here he whistles for the dog, and the dog just constantly jumps on him, and then he's like, Krypto home, Krypto home. Maybe the third time more, Krypto home. I just found it terrible. And you know what? This whole scene could have been like a 30-second thing, but just because we're dragging it out with these dumb, unfunny jokes. I mean, why? Oh, boy, I'm wondering if I should say something because it could be considered a spoiler. Do you care if I?
I don't care. But
all
yeah,
right, heads up, guys. This could be considered a spoiler.
Yeah,
I've heard that this is true. I'm not 100% sure. I've heard Krypto's not actually Superman's dog. He's Supergirl's dog, and that Superman in the movie is watching him while Supergirl is gone for a while.
Oh, okay.
So it makes you. Why is he calling Krypto if that's not even his dog? And clearly, he doesn't know Krypto well enough if the dog is just jumping and bouncing on him.
Yeah.
And like hearing him drag, like the score in that moment where he's dragging him, like dun 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 dun. I'm like, oh, that's getting you hyped, but the scene is stupid. And then he takes him, and then like we have the robots, and it's just like, I know Gunn is like talking about Superman is kind, and I appreciate that, thumbs up, but like he's really banging it over our heads when the robot's just like, no need to thank us, sir. We are just robots. We don't feel anything. But then the next robot shows emotion for when he looks at her. Like, what? Now, maybe there's a plot point about how the robots advance over time to have feelings.
They're realizing they have feelings.
Yeah. Heartwarming, isn't it? But and that's all we know about. That's all we really got from this spot is the dog and the robots. And I'm just like, if this was supposed to make me feel like give me hope, it doesn't. Like the trailer was a music trailer. That it was just going to be stuff we'd already seen before to the music. This was our first taste. I think this looks terrible. And just by judging from the reactions, how divided it is, I'd be worried if I was Warner Brothers, to be honest. I can't see this movie kicking off a universe. I think it's going to be the exact same thing with Man of Steel. I think we went one way with Man of Steel. We're going all the way another way. I think it's going to be the same result.
Missing both times, yeah. I actually, and this could be a bit of a getting into the comment section of the name, but since I'm not familiar, I'm curious. Is there, beyond just the very surface level, like, annoying fan culture of, like, Zack Snyder fans just hating it because it's not what it's not their favorite flavor of ice cream, what is the consensus beyond that? Because I don't think I've personally seen that much, like, the divisiveness that you're referring to. I'm not that aware of it. I'm not aware of, like, what people are critiquing about this, other than, like, your critique. and my
I
own
know
critique.
Hollywood Reporter did an article about how like fans are divided over it. And look, it's hard to tell on like Twitter or Facebook about who is a Snyder
Yeah.
bro or whatever, but it did feel like there were a number of reactions of people going, "Oh no."
Oh,
Like
okay.
it
Yeah.
felt like there were people who I think thought Gunn was going to not do the Guardians humor, that he was going to try to be more like Richard Donner, who directed
Yeah.
the Christopher Reeve Superman movie. But we saw it's very much like Guardians, like Peacemaker. It felt like, now look, there's some people, and look, I get it. If you hated Man of Steel, you want something completely different, sure. But it did feel like there were people expecting a modern Christopher Reeve and realizing it's not that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That makes sense then, because I gotta say, I mean, that's pretty much my exact opinion. I guess my thoughts on it are, I still have all the same feelings where I personally prefer the concepting going into this, like hope, friendliness, a brighter, more colorful version of the character that is, now we can see, much more loosely inspired by those older versions. I like that, and I still like that concept, and I still think there's a pretty high chance I would enjoy this a lot more than Man of Steel. Isn't saying a lot, but I think that there's a pretty high chance of that. That being said, I did have a similar reaction watching that, where I was like, this literally feels no different whatsoever than just, what if we did a Marvel movie? Like, just
Yes.
like a modern Marvel again. And I'm someone who, I like the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise. Like, I've always been on this podcast that has defended the Guardians of Galaxy franchise. So I'm not like a all around. I think James Gunn has done stuff that has worked for me. But at the same time, I'm not like a James Gunn fan. Like, I just happen to like the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, but I'm not like a James Gunn fan where I think that he is uniquely funny or that he is uniquely good at making these movies. Like, I think he's proven himself with Guardians 1 and 2 at least.
Did you ever see 3?
I haven't.
Even as someone who hates 3, 3's the best.
Oh, okay. Interesting. I will have to check it out then. But yeah, there are things that can work in that, but like at the same time, just because I like Guardians 1 and 2 doesn't mean that I am gonna go, oh, that, but now with Superman, like just taking that humor and putting it into Superman. Like, no, I don't want to. I don't care about that. Like, that's not. It feels like being beaten over the head with the same movie over and over again, but this time he's wearing a Superman suit. Like, it isn't just the multiverse thing that is getting tiresome. It is like the entire.
This time you got pocket universes.
Yes. It is, yeah, it's not just that's getting tiresome. It's this entire formula. The entire formula, both with the multiverse plot lines and with the style of humor and everything about everything about superhero movies, it's all tired at this point. It's all being beaten over the head with us over and over and over again. To the point where maybe they should have chosen someone to run DC that hadn't done a bunch of recent superhero movies. Like, maybe they should have just chosen a good director and storyteller in general. Maybe someone more involved in comics rather than movies. Like,
I don't know if that would, because they are two different mediums, but I mean, they were searching for a Kevin Feige, which is just like, I mean, I've said it before, like, Kevin Feige is such a unique individual where he is a movie producer, but he's also a big comic book fan, where he can be a basically the showrunner of the MCU. They did have someone in mind, and I can look it up in a second, but they did. It was reported there was someone that David Zaslav, the CEO of Warner Brothers, did have in mind and was very gung-ho about, and that person turned it down. So there was someone that was they really wanted before they hired Gunn and Safran.
Interesting.
Who would have been more of a producer type person. Maybe I'll look him up in a second, but I can't remember who that person was. But it wasn't a filmmaker. It was a producer.
Interesting. Okay. But yeah, final thoughts on this 5-minute clip at CinemaCon clip for a second to talk about actual things that happen in it. I feel like I hope that they just chose a really, really bad clip to show. Because it does kind of feel like everything they showed is kind of like the worst case scenario for what either of us could have imagined for this particular concept. Because, I mean, we're seeing a clip, and maybe this is part of the reason that they chose it, where there's no really other human character besides Superman who is like not totally with it. And then there is a dog. What if Crypto was annoying? That's kind of the James Gunn's big inspiration for making this movie was, I just realized, what if Crypto was annoying? What if instead he was a really like annoying dog?
What if Crypto liked to bite people?
Yeah, what if he suckkt? That would be
awesome.
awesome.
What if at the end Superman has to old yell at him like, I love you, Crypto. Forgive me, Kara.
Yeah. And hearing that story, that is a cute story from James Gunn. I'm not bashing that. I actually like the concept of like, what if he was like a real dog? But I just don't
like
think
the idea that the director who's putting emphasis on this dog recently got a dog himself and went through it.
Yeah, no, again, this is one of those things where like everything in concept works for me. I like the idea. The execution is like, it's like in the realm of Jar Jar Binks. It's like, it's one of those characters that is just like an annoying CGI character. I don't know that it's like there's got to be some CGI, right? I don't know how like.
Was it just me who thought the dog looked fake the whole time?
That's what I was thinking. Like it to me feels like like they used a real dog but made it look fake. It's kind of
maybe
bizarre.
Like to do like facial expressions and stuff.
Yeah, like. For lack of a better term, I said CGI, but I don't really mean CGI. I just mean like this movie seems to suffer from the everything looks fake thing that a lot of movies, which again, going back to Guardians of the Galaxy 2, which I did really like, I think was one of the worst culprits of that. They fully looked like they were walking around in a blue screen room. Like the whole movie just like, particularly on the God Planet place, I've never seen anything look less convincing in my life. I've never more seen actors walking around go, oh, wow, look at that. And it's like you're
they
looking
didn't have
at
the tennis balls to show where to look.
Yeah, like, and I'm just like, we've now seen one clip from the Superman movie, and that's what it feels like to me. Nothing really felt that grounded or real to me. And like, and the other thing is being carried around by robots in it.
Yeah.
And like that's fine. He's a superhero. He has he flies. Like, I'm not saying it's not that they're robots. It's that we've made Crypto an annoying fake looking character for comedic relief. And now here are two robots that also are annoying CGI characters for character relief.
Yeah, those robots don't look like they look like very like a C-3PO was anorexic. They don't look like they should like survive. They look like they're about to fall apart.
Yeah. Yeah. I hate to say it, but they should have just put a guy in a metal suit. They really should have. Or just not have robots. I don't know what the comic connection is, but
sometimes there are robots.
Okay.
And that's a nice transition to where we focus.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah. the Fortress of Solitude, the design looks similar to the Christopher Reeve movies as well as Smallville. I mean, the big difference is that it rises whenever Superman goes there. I saw some people say, well, that's a way for, like, satellites don't see it, which I'm just like, man, people think about that way too much. But I wish the fortress would just stay there all the time, but, you know, it's a cool visual to have, because if it's not the origin story, we're not going to see it rise.
Yeah.
You know, this way we do get to see it. I'm assuming that will probably only happen once. Now, since it's inspired by the Silver Age, okay, this is just something I'm wondering out loud. I wonder if the Fortress of Solitude will have, from the comic books, the giant heavy key that's made from a metal from outer space that only Superman can lift. Now, obviously you couldn't do that in this scene because Krypto doesn't have thumbs to lift it. So, I'm just wondering if that could be in there.
Yeah.
Now, it hasn't been shown in any of the movies, but there are multiple Superman stories where the Fortress of Solitude does have robots. This group of robots seems like it's inspired by the All-Star Superman comic book storyline, where he had like a bunch of different robots. Now, in the animated film Superman Doomsday, I think he only had one. And there's, you know what? In Doomsday, that robot has a great line where Superman and Lois are dating, okay? And she wants to know what his secret identity is. And they get to a fight about, like, Lois, I can't tell you, it could put you in danger. And she walks away. Just like, you know, after dating for so many months, it would be nice to call you something other than Superman. And then the robot, in like his monotone voice, goes, he also goes by Kal-El. And she goes, shut up.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, she kind of knows, she basically knows he's Clark, but she wants to be told that.
Yeah.
And, you know, Tyler Hoechlin's Superman, Supergirl, had a robot, but it wasn't like, if we're going to compare to Star Wars, it wasn't like C-3PO like we see in here. It was more R2-D2, but he talked. So it was a very little robot.
Yeah.
His name is Kellex. I think he's in Man of Steel as well, but
Yeah.
it's not all the time, because sometimes you'll have, instead of the robots, you'll have, like, audio of, like, Jor-El, like, where, like, he can speak to his, a program of his dead father.